Hello again, guys, it is I, Freeze700. We are back with some Kingdom Under Fire lore. This time, what the fuck is the Orcs? So, the Orcs is the main species that inhabits the desert region known as Hexter. Now, Hexter is a very hostile location, so that's kind of its own separate lore video because I have to cover the history of that and how much it relates to the Orcs. But this is strictly like, what are the Orcs specifically? So, the Orcs are creatures from the Dark Dimension, and as I explained in my What the Fuck is Kingdom Under Fire lore video, if you haven't watched it, please go check it out. But in that video I explained that the Dark Dimension, the god of the Dark Dimension, Ankablosa, was pissed that Nibel, the god of light, didn't give the world back to the god of darkness. Because, you know, they have to cycle us out so that way their creations do not overflow each other and destroy the universe. Well, because Nibel decided not to give his people over, the world over, because he got tired of seeing them getting genocided all the time, well, Ankablosa snuck in some orcs. And this, not only did he sneak in orcs, but he snuck in the Dark Elves too. But we find out that the Orcs are actually not worshippers of Ankablosa. They actually don't like him that much. They actually prefer to stick to the earth roots that Nibel has created, which is very interesting in itself because they are warriors. They are meant for war, but they don't seem to want to live that way. They actually rather just be on their own, just live their way the way they've been living, which is as a tribal society. But before I go on talking about their society structure, let's talk about their physiology, their anatomy. So, as far as you can see, they're very small, stout-like figures. They're actually a few inches smaller than a man, but they're much stronger than a man. In other words, they may be slightly shorter than a man, roughly around the size of a dwarf, maybe taller, but they make up for that by having such muscle density that they can easily just punch a man and knock him on his ass. Whereas if I was to punch another human, I may disorient him, I may make him stumble around a bit, but he'll still be on his feet. An orc, when they punch, it's hard, it hurts. Now, something else I'd like to point out is that their anatomy is very hog-like, very pig-like. This is why they've earned a lot of nicknames like swine, hogs, squealers. It's because they look and sound like pigs. This is why their greatest weakness is actually fire. Because if you burn them, well, they're gonna start hogging like little swine piggies. Interestingly enough, though, is that despite the fact that they are magical creatures, they don't really practice magic that well. In fact, a human is able to cast magic way easier than an orc can. Now, this is where I would say never ever ever use a Wikipedia site, because in the Wikipedia, if you ever look at it, like I tried to, their site, they say that the orcs don't practice magic at all. This is actually not true. This is far from accurate. You see, the games that you play, because there's only games, there's no books, the games that you play, there actually are orc shamans. And in Kingdom Under Fire Heroes, one of your advisors to Lionheart is actually an orc lich. So in order to be a lich, that means that you had to be a practitioner of curse magic, which is very Dark Dimension magic, but, you know, die from whatever old age, but you enacted a ritual so you come back as an undead. But he's an orc lich. That's what makes it very interesting. It's like, whoa, you're a lich who's an orc. So obviously orcs can practice magic. The only issue is, though, is that their minds kind of boggle that down. You see, orc minds aren't that complicated. They're very simplistic. So in other words, if I told them that there is tiny little organisms living inside their bloodstream, they wouldn't understand that. To them, they understand that blood means life. They know that. They know they couldn't survive without it. They know all living beings need blood. But they don't understand the more complexity issue, like saying that blood carries oxygen, blood carries many, many millions of tiny little living organisms inside it. They wouldn't be able to grasp that concept without heavy, heavy amounts of studying and hard work on their end. Whereas for us humans, if I told you there was a bunch of little organisms, you would just simply snap according to the concept and go, oh, well, that's actually cool. That makes sense. So that's the reason why their society is very tribalistic. They don't have that firm intelligence to grasp like deep concepts like architecture. A nice little tidbit thing, this again goes into the factor that these are magical beings, is that when an orc heals, he can heal either over time because of his sheer body physiology, because orcs are tough sons of bitches. They have way more muscle density than a human. They just have short little legs, which of course hampers them as far as movement. But something that's interesting about them is that if they get enraged, if they get mad, that actually heals them. So, when an orc gets knocked on his ass by a human and he gets back up, if the hog screams and squeals at the enemy and then charges at him, the orc just healed back the wound that you just gave him. This is due to their physiology. They're magical beings after all. Now, that may seem weird to you, and it definitely does seem weird, but you have to factor in that a human being, we aren't magical beings. But being angry does have an effect on your physiology. In other words, when you're at the gym, this is why in the army they always yell at you. Because when you're angry, you're able to dish out more push-ups than what you normally would be if you were in a calm state of mind. With orcs, they're magical beings, so when they get angry, they actually heal. And they get stronger, which is not a good thing for you or I if we were to ever get smacked by one of these motherfuckers. Now, interesting enough is that although they are magical beings and although they do have their own magical practitioners, in orc society it is heavily hated whenever you resurrect the dead. So if you ever make ghouls, like resurrect a dead orc and turn him into a zombie so that way he can fight, they consider this a disgrace to the undead, to their dead, their ancestors. As I said, they're a very tribal society, much like African societies and Native American societies, where the dead are viewed as something that's sacred. You should never touch the dead. You should just let them be, let them rest. But if you're an orc and you practice curse magic, one of the aspects of curse magic is resurrecting the dead, necromancy. They do not like this. Now, they'll use the other aspects of curse magic, like silencing their opponent so they can't cast magic, or obliterating their armor so that way their iron armor or steel armor is practically useless. These are all aspects of curse magic. But when it comes to the summoning of dead, whenever it comes to anything that deals with their dead bodies, they will unite and they will hunt whoever the lich is that's responsible for desecrating their dead, their ancestors. This has happened many times over and over. Since we started talking about their values and their traditions, let's talk a little bit about their society. So their society is easily divided, but also easily united. After all, they are a very warlike species. When it comes to the whole Hexter region, they are always in conflict between 30 or so tribes, sometimes more, sometimes less. Sometimes there is no conflict at all. Sometimes it's just Hexter. They're all united as one. This is why if I ever did a what the fuck is Hexter video, it'd be a little complicated because it could mean two different things depending on what it is that we're talking about. It could be the region, known as Hexter, or it could be Hexter as a nation where the orcs are actually united. But that's always ambiguous. It's always left unknown whether the state of the orcs is together or not in some of the video games. Like in a War of Heroes, it's not explained if all the orcs are united or if it's just the Red Ogre's tribe is the one that is just helping the Lich kill Yana. It's never fully explained. Whereas in Crusaders and Heroes, it is fully said in detail that they are united, and their nation is known as Hexter. So that's my little spiel about Hexter. Besides that though, their society, since they have that small brain capacity, their society is very simplistic. So when you go there, they have teamwork. They're able to understand the value of workmanship and teamwork. This is something that the Dark Elves do not have. Dark Elves just simply have slaves and tell them what to do, because Dark Elves are smart enough to tell humans, okay, build me a church, build me a tower. But Orcs, they don't have that simplicity. I mean, they don't have that intelligence to do that. So they have to rely on their simplicity, which is small, little huts that are sturdy. They're able to deal with some wood. Maybe they're able to put in some mud to build a hut. But it's nothing sophisticated like a church, nothing sophisticated like a wall. They're very basic. In fact, the only walls we've ever seen are just made of wooden stakes put on the ground. Nothing that complicated. As far as like their weapons and their armor, well that gets a little bit more sophisticated. See, their weapons they use is just iron. They don't have the technology nor do they have the brains to make steel. That requires a lot of stuff. So that's why in the pictures I show you, that's why their weapons look kind of brownish, is because that iron is containing so many impurities that, again, if you learned how to make steel, you would know how to get rid of those impurities. But an orc does not have that knowledge, just due to the sheer fact that, as I said, their brain power is much, much lesser than that of a human's. Now, when it comes to their armor, though, this is where it gets interesting. So Hexter is a very mineral-poor area, so because of this, the orcs just simply make all the iron that they find into weapons or shields, and that's it. They don't actually use it to make armor per se. So all that armor you see on is actually fur and hides from animals of Hexter, because the animals of Hexter are very tough beasts. And this plays into another thing about the orcs that is very interesting, is that they're master tamers. So the orc society is heavily drawn upon taming very dangerous animals. They tame wyverns, which they use to fly around and kill giant eagles, but also to kill a multitude of things like bomber wings, anything that flies really. That's what the wyverns are good for. They tame scorpions, and scorpions is what I would say is like the bread and butter of why the orc trade exists. This is why you would ever trade with an orc society, is because those scorpions can be used for a multitude of things. One, they could be used for carrying stuff. The scorpions are huge. They can carry quite a lot of goods. But two, scorpions are used as siege warfare. They're able to send shockwaves underground that is not only able to decimate infantry squads, but it's also able to cripple the foundations of the sophisticated walls that the humans have built up. Even dark elves. There's been one instance where orcs united and completely ransacked a dark elf castle. The dark elf castle stood no fucking chance, because the orcs had so many scorpions that the walls just simply could not keep standing when there's no ground below them. This is, again, the bread and butter of the orcs, is this taming of great powerful animals. And by using these animals, they're able to achieve something that no other race really could, which is they're able to have a lot of support. So they not only have the toughest infantry in the game and the universe, because after all, they're able to out-punch a human, but they also have the best supporting units. They may not have catapults, because they're not sophisticated enough to build that, but they do have teamwork to be able to build small traps that, yes, they're not as deadly as the humans, like the explosive traps that the humans could put down, but they are sturdy enough where spikes can randomly jump out of the ground and impale you. And they also have the teamwork to tame great animals that, as humans, we would stand no chance against. Like a swamp mammoth. The swamp mammoth has a hide so tough that it actually requires a ballista or a catapult or any explosive to actually blow its hole open. But it's going to require a large concentrated effort. So you can't just shoot it with one harpoon and it's going to go down. No. You got to shoot it with many harpoons. This is why the orcs are such a deadly nation if anyone was to ever make them unite. If they ever united against a common foe, you're going to be in for quite a world of hurt, because due to their tribal society, they have high birth rates. So with this high birth rates means that their army will almost certainly outnumber yours. But not only are they going to outnumber you, they're also going to bring in monsters that are way tougher than them themselves. So now not only are you as a human dealing with something that's 50% stronger than you, but now you're dealing with them where it's 2 or 3 of them versus just one human. And then you gotta tackle in that there's gonna be a scorpion or a swamp mammoth or flying dragons breathing noxious gas on you. Yeah, the orcs are a very interesting race because they're a dark dimension species where In Kingdom Under Fire Crusaders, what happens is Inkablosa temporarily gains control of the world. And he gets rid of the Dark Elves because the Dark Elves aren't fit to exist in his dimension. They're too weak. But the Orcs, they're totally fine. The issue is, though, is that the Orcs, although they are totally fine and they are perfectly capable of living in the Dark Dimension, they do not adhere to the Dark Dimension. They actually like the place that they're in. They like everything there is about the Dimension of Light. So that's what I think is very interesting about them. They're meant for war. Everything about their physiology, everything about their society screams out warfare. But truth of the matter is, they don't believe in genocide. They'll enslave you, they'll set you free, but they don't believe in genocide. They will never kill women and children. They will always unite on a moment's notice if there's ever any issues, or if both tribes are simply exhausted themselves. They'll easily unite with each other and become brothers at arms. So it's a very unique race and unique species out of all the species that exist in Bersia and Kingdom Under Fire. So besides that, this has been my lore video on what the fuck is Orcs. I hope you guys enjoyed some things, and besides that, hit the like button, comment down below what you guys think, tell me if you want more Kingdom Under Fire lore. Besides that, this has been Freezer700. I'm out. See you guys next time.